Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Invicta Pro Diver 26970 Quartz. This watch is available from amazon.co.uk for €77. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the Invicta Pro Diver comes in this cardboard watch box with a hinged lid. Now I'm going to be critical of this. Invicta Pro Divers used to come in a vinyl coated watch box, which was actually similar to a Rolex watch box with a hinged lid, and the interior used to be upholstered with an aesthetically pleasing yellow velour fabric to a good standard, and in the base the padded pillow cushion was also upholstered with velour fabric, just like a Rolex watch box. It's now just a piece of foam, and the base of the watch box is now just made from folded cardboard. So this is a clear cost-cutting measure, and the reason why Invicta have done this is to increase their profit margin per piece. And I think that watch brands should always endeavour to improve the quality of their watches and the quality of their watch boxes, not downgrade them in order to maximise profit margin by decreasing production costs. So it's a real disappointment. I do appreciate this is a low tier piece at €77, but they should have kept the original vinyl watch boxes. So with a watch you get this Invicta tag, and on the reverse you have a QR code, and that is for the reference number of this Pro Diver 26970, which is the Quartz version. Inside the hinged lid we have a pocket which houses this card, which I'll show you. So this is the warranty card. Usually Invicta Pro Divers are covered by a 2-year international warranty, which is very good, but you can register your watch online and that will extend the 2-year warranty by 1 year. So you will then get upgrade to 3 years warranty. So it's very good to get 3 years warranty on a low tier piece costing only €77, and Invicta deserve credit for that. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, the Pro Diver 26970 Quartz is clearly an homage to the Rolex Submariner date 16610. Very similar proportions and dimensions. We have a 40mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 48mm, a thickness of 11.4mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the flip lock clasp, and as you can see the flip lock clasp is signed to high standard with the Invicta winged emblem and also Invicta logo engraved. So good quality engraving, and the quality of the finishing to the clasp is very good. Beautiful lustre to the brushed satin finishing and flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. We have 4 micro adjustment holes, which is adequate. I'm not going to be critical of this being a light gauge of 316L grade stainless steel, which I usually would be, because on the 16610 throughout its production life up until its discontinuation in 2010, Rolex were using a similar light gauge of 904L oyster steel in their flip lock clasps. So this clasp is not actually very different to a 16610 clasp. They also were pressed stainless steel rather than being solid milled stainless steel, and I think that Invicta have done a good job because it hasn't got any sharp edges, doesn't have sharp corners, and it's actually made very well. So we have a black glossy enamel dial, which is very aesthetically pleasing. I prefer glossy enamel dials to matte or sunburst. The dial layout is very similar to the 16610. Rather than using maxi dial indices as per the current Submariner dates, it uses these smaller indices, so the proportions are correct. Although the Mercedes handset is undersized, if you look at the Mercedes hour hand, it looks too short and too small. And also the minute hand doesn't extend all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring, although the second hand is correctly proportioned. So I think that Invicta could enlarge the proportions of the hands and lengthen the hour hand in particular, which is short. But the dial layout is clearly legible as per the 16610, which this is an homage to. One detail I actually prefer about this Pro Diver to the Submariner date 16610 is the use of silver text on the dial rather than white. And Invicta deserve credit because they could have just copied Rolex and used white text on the dial and also white minute ticks on the chapter ring. But this uses silver ticks and also silver text. And the silver actually looks very classy. I like it. It gives us a high grade look, and it still contrasts very well with the glossy black enamel dial, so the legibility is good, the font and the high definition printing of the silver paint is very good. So they've printed the dial very well. I like the silver applied mirror polished Invicta winged emblem and also applied Invicta. Again, they could have cut production costs by simply printing the emblem and logo, but they didn't. They applied the logo and it actually looks very good. So nice symmetry to the dial with a layout following the Submariner date 16610, but however, I'm just going to move the minute hand out of the way of the date complication so you can see it better. A criticism I have, a production cost-cutting measure, is the use of a 1.5 times Cyclops magnifier. Now on a Rolex 16610 it's 2.5 times, and this watch really needs 2.5 times, and I'll explain why. If I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see this uses a quartz rather than an automatic. The automatic version is the NH35A. This uses the Seiko PC32 quartz. Because the quartz module is very slender, you can see that the rehort is made very deep in order to house the thin quartz movement in a deep head of the piece. And the stainless steel rehort is exceptionally deep. The problem with that is the dial is sunk very deep within the head of the piece, and it's very far away from the underside of the flat mineral crystal. And the problem with that is it creates a shadow because the date wheel beneath the dial is also very deep. It's now darkened because the date wheel is so far away from the crystal, it's so sunk deep beneath the rehort and also the dial, you get this shadow. So 1.5 times just isn't enough. If it had 2.5 times magnification, that would really help. Now, the other cost-cutting measure is mineral crystal. I would like to see sapphire crystal. I appreciate this is €77. It's significantly less expensive than the automatic version, but this is 2024. Sapphire crystal has now become the industry standard. We're seeing it on Pagani design watches such as the PD1661, which is a Submariner date Homage. That is below €100. It has sapphire crystal, so there is no excuse for Invicta still using mineral crystal in 2024. So it lacks AR coating, it's very shiny and reflective as you can see, and it would really benefit from clear AR coating and sapphire crystal versus this mineral crystal without AR. But one has to also level criticism at Rolex as well, because the 16610 throughout its production life did not have AR coating on the underside of their sapphire crystal either. Rolex did use AR coating on the underside of the Cyclops magnifier, but not on the crystal itself. Even in 2010, it still did not have AR coating. So one has to level criticism at Rolex as well as Invicta equally for that production cost error. With regards to the crown, solid 316L grade stainless steel, coin edge finished, nice chamfer to it, no sharp edges, it feels grippy and tactile, and it's also correctly proportioned, and it's embossed with the Invicta emblem to a good standard, so very aesthetically pleasing. Let's test the screw down crown execution. Absolutely silky smooth. This is a pleasant surprise because this is a low tier piece, €77. But the screw down crown has no friction whatsoever. The interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube mesh very well. Good quality control, good machining, good tolerances, so I like it. And one doesn't have to unscrew it too many times. It's got a minimum number of threads on the crown tube and it unscrews and pops out very well. So this uses the Seiko PC32 Quartz. So in the first click position, we're now in the quick set date setting position. Rotating it anti-clockwise clicks over the date. Rotating it clockwise clicks over the date to the next day of the month. So the quick set complication works very well, although it is hard to read the date complication due to the 1.5 times rather than 2.5 times and due to the date wheel being sunk so deep beneath the rehort and the dial. But it works very well, and the proportions of the Arabic numerals are good despite the 1.5 times lack of magnification. Putting it out to the second click position hacks the movement, and you can see the second hand has now stopped dead with the PC32 Quartz. Now, one thing I dislike about it is it has a very light resistance. There's no friction whatsoever because the PC32 has 0 joules. And as you can see, the minute hand rotates too easily. This is something I prefer about the automatic version with the NH35A. It has more resistance in the gearing. So when setting the time, the minute hand has some resistance. You can feel the friction in the gearing. And the problem with it being so light is when you push back in the crown, sometimes the minute hand jumps out of position. So you've got to be very careful because it's so light, the resistance of the gearing. You've got to be very careful not to accidentally slightly turn the crown as you push it back in because it makes the minute hand jump either anti-clockwise or clockwise. So that's something to note. It's something that's better with the Seiko NH35A, the gearing. You can feel the minute hand has more resistance. This is very light. But having said that, it pushes back in with a nice positive click, and that restarts the second hand ticking around the dial once again. So let's test screwing it down. Immediate thread pickup. So this is outstanding screw down crown execution. It's silky smooth. There's an immediate thread pickup between the internal thread and the external thread of the crown tube, and it screws down very well. This is a 10 out of 10 screw down crown execution. Invicta deserve credit for this because at €77 they have got the fundamentals right. The screw down crown, which provides 200 meters of hermetic seal, is done very well. Right, so 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. Let's test the bezel execution. Nice loud audible clicks. Feels very similar, firm resistance, feels very like a Seiko 5KX, which you'll be familiar with. It's got that kind of Seiko bezel action. Nice firm ratcheting clicks. They feel heavy. It feels very sprung loaded, and I really like it. I like the loud audible clicks. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever. I'm just going to check it 4 times. No lateral side-to-side play. It's a good tight bezel. Let's just check it for back play. No back play whatsoever. This is a very well executed bezel. Feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. It doesn't get tight and loose, which is good. And I really like the loud audible clicks. It feels like a real heavy mechanism. I love the solid feeling of it. Nice loud audible clicks, good ratcheting mechanism. It feels heavily sprung loaded, which gives you an indication it's going to be durable. Often with low tip pieces, the bezel action is too light, and you get the feeling that it's going to have lateral side-to-side play or back play, and the bezel isn't going to last. But this feels really solid, just like a Seiko bezel action. So I'm just going to check the alignment. One more click. Perfect. The Lume Pippin triangle perfectly align with the triangle 12 o'clock index and the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring. So Invicta deserve full credit for this because we have got perfect bezel execution. No lateral side-to-side play, no back play whatsoever, nice firm resistance, perfect alignment. This is 10 out of 10 bezel execution. At €77 in the low tier, this really is an example of other low tier brands, how to get it correct. For example, often on Pagani design watches, which are below €100, such as the 1661, they have lateral side-to-side play, back play, or the alignment is incorrect. This gets all 3 elements correct, and I really appreciate that Invicta have got the quality control right with regards to the crown execution and the bezel execution. So I'll show you the Caseback. Solid 316L grade stainless steel. The stainless steel Caseback is finished to a good standard. It's engraved with Invicta and the specifications of the Pro Diver. Mirror polished circumference. The milled slots are well machined, no sharp edges, no burrs, and it does a good job because it provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters. The thing I most like about this Pro Diver Quartz is the flat profile of the Caseback. Just look how perfectly flat that is. It's not bubble back whatsoever. Invicta actually made a mistake with the automatic version, which is Seiko NH35A powered, because that piece is 14mm thick, and it's 1mm too thick because of the bubble back profile of the exhibition Caseback. Had Invicta used a solid stainless steel Caseback on the automatic version, they could have reduced the thickness from 14 down to 13. So to put it into perspective, the Submariner date 16610, which this is an homage to, is 12.7mm. It's a low profile piece, and that does have a bubble back stainless steel Caseback. This has 200 meters of hermetic seal, but it's very thin and it's very flat, and therefore it fits very snugly to the wrist. Much better fit than the automatic version. And had they used stainless steel on the automatic rather than an exhibition Caseback glazed with mineral crystal, it would have been 13mm rather than 14, 1mm thinner. So this is one thing I really prefer about the Quartz versus the automatic. I'll give you a wrist shot and you'll be able to see that. Just how close it fits to the wrist. Now, if you look at this, this is an incredibly thin piece for 200 meters, and Invicta deserve credit for this. This is one of my favorite aspects. It's only 11.4mm. So they've made the correct decision by using a flat mineral crystal rather than domed. And you can see, just look at the undercut. Nice curved profile, very similar case shape to the Submariner date 16610. There's not a big gap beneath the tips of the lugs. It curves around the wrist very well, and it's incredibly thin. Anything below 13mm will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. And at 11.4, needless to say, this is a very low profile piece, it's easily going to slip underneath the shirt cuff. It also feels very balanced, 137 grams with all the links in the bracelet, despite being thick. It's 20 to 18. It would look better if it was 20 to 16 as per the 16610, but it does feel balanced due to the pressed metal clasp rather than solid milled, and also the hollow folded end links. They reduce the heft, so it actually feels a very well balanced piece with a 40mm head of the piece on a 20 to 18 versus 20 to 16 bracelet. So the flat stainless steel caseback reduces the thickness of this piece by 1mm. It's not 12.4 as a result, it's only 11.4. Much better fit than the automatic. With a bubble back caseback at 14, it's far too top heavy and thick. So that's something to bear in mind. Consider the Quartz, the 26970 version of the Pro Diver versus the automatic with the NH35A, because it doesn't have that bubble back caseback. Better fitting piece, still gives the same feel good factor, very aesthetically pleasing, although it really could benefit from AR coating because it is very shiny and reflective, as I've detailed. Now, as you can see, this would easily fit up to a 9-inch wrist. I'm on full extension, position 4 of the 4 micro adjustments. This is the maximum length, and as you can see, even I would remove 1 to 2 links from this bracelet, and I have a large 8-inch wrist, as you'll know from my previous reviews. I can easily slide two fingers beneath the bracelet and clasp, so it does come with plenty of links if you're a collector with a larger wrist of over 8 inches. Right, so let's do a Lume test, and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So this uses green Trittonite Luminova, and I would like to see Invicta upgrade to using C3 Superluminova or alternatively BGW9 Superluminova, because in 2024 it's unacceptable to still be using Luminova. It's a clear cost-cutting measure, and green Trittonite Luminova is poor quality Lume. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to its absolute maximum. Right, so that's now fully charged. Now initially it does look like the performance is good, but what you'll see is, particularly on the indices, it will fade very quickly. It doesn't hold charge, and I can see it's already beginning to fade and fade fast. So what we're looking at is clearly 3 to 4 layers of Trittonite Luminova versus 5 to 6 layers of C3 Superluminova. The other thing you'll notice is on the Mercedes handset, they're appearing to glow brighter, much brighter than the applied indices, because they've clearly applied more layers of Luminova to the Mercedes hands than they have on the applied indices. So there's a mismatch, not in colour tone, they're all the same green tone, but the problem is the hands are glowing brighter due to the additional layers. So they've clearly put 5 to 6 layers on the handset, but I would say 3 to 4 layers on the applied indices. The Lume pip inlaid in the aluminium bezel inserts is also fading very fast, like the indices, because again, it's not Superluminova. This would look far better with C3 Superluminova and 5 to 6 layers on the indices, and also C3 Superluminova used in the Lume pip, because as you can see, the hands are still glowing okay, but on the indices and the Lume pip on the bezel, they are really fading fast, and they will continue to fade very quickly. So this is the difference between cheap Luminova. Trittonite Luminova is a cost-cutting measure, and C3 Superluminova really is far better in performance, and now it's fading very badly. So something to bear in mind, the poor quality Luminova, but one has to expect some cost-cutting because this is €77. We're not looking at a mid-tier piece, and we're not looking at a low-tier piece at the top end costing €300 to €400. €77 is inexpensive. I'm very pleased about the crown execution and the bezel execution at this price point. So let's discuss the movement use, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. This uses the Seiko PC32 Quartz. It's made in Japan and it's been in use since 2010, so at this stage it has 14 years of service. No reliability issues reported whatsoever. It's a good, solid, reliable, well-proven workhorse quartz movement. And I like the fact it's a Seiko movement made in Japan. 0 joules. It has a frequency of 32,768 Hz. Now, the stated accuracy of the PC32 is less than 30 seconds per month. Now, just think about that. That's not less than 30 seconds per day or per week. That is per month. Better than 1 second per day accuracy. It's an incredibly accurate movement. The other thing I really like about the Seiko PC32 is the battery life. It has a 3-year battery life, and it is the correct choice for this piece. It has hacking, And the thing I really like about it above all else is it is only 4.15 millimeters thick, so it's a very thin quartz movement. The benefit of it being only 4.15 is that Invicta were able to reduce the thickness of the head of this piece to only 11.4 millimeters, and it has that very flat, low profile stainless steel caseback, which still provides 200 meters of hermetic seal. So they haven't sacrificed the water resistance by reducing the thickness, because usually when brands reduce the thickness of a watch, they make the sapphire crystal or the caseback thinner in order to get the thickness down below 13, but then they have to reduce the water resistance from 200 to 100, etc. But with this, it still has 200 meters with the flat sapphire crystal and the flat stainless steel caseback, but 11.4 really is very comfortable. Far more comfortable than the 14mm thick Seiko NH35A automatic version of the Pro Diver, and I think that Invicta deserve credit for that. 11.4 for a 200 meter water resistant piece is very good. So, comfortable piece to wear, feel good factor is excellent. The two things that I'm very impressed with, and they deserve full credit for: screw down crown execution is silky smooth, bezel execution is 10 out of 10. It feels nice and tight, no lateral side side play, no back play, perfect alignment. So at this price point, €77, to get perfect screw down crown execution, perfect bezel execution is very impressive. And one can forgive the shortcomings with regards to specifications such as mineral crystal, no AR coating, hollow folded end links, and of course we've got the rattle in the bracelets. These are things you can overlook, because if you get solid crown execution and solid bezel execution, and also the quartz movement used, the PC32 made by Seiko in Japan, less than 1 second per day accuracy is outstanding, 3-year battery life is outstanding. So good movement, good crown execution, good bezel execution. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. It's excellent quality and excellent value at €77. I'm going to highly recommend it to you for your consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Invicta Pro Diver 26970 Quartz. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.